Do you like quizzes? I know that I do, especially when they're dead simple, like this. I want you to let me know what the following have in common. Here we go. Jaguar, Land Rover, Royal Enfield, BSA, Vincent, and Norton. Time's up. If you said those brands are as English as drafty old castles, weak tea, and overcooked vegetables, you'd be wrong. Curious? Stick around. El Camino is brought to you by Yamaha, revs your heart. Importations Thibault, distributor of power sports parts and accessories. And by GP Bikes, Canada's power sports authority. Welcome to El Camino. Once upon a time, Land Rover, Norton, Royal Enfield, and all those other brands were, of course, English. They carried their national heritage as proudly as an electrical fire and an oil stain on the driveway. But today those brands are as Indian as a vindaloo curry strong enough to curl your fingernails. I'll take mine with tofu. Motorcyclists in the West have an antiquated view of the world of motorcycling. We're not quite ready to accept that the so-called legacy brands, those assembled by candlelight, have a corrupted lineage. Ducatis are Italian, right? Well, if you overlook the fact that they're owned by Germans and have a factory in Thailand, well, sure. Even Harley-Davidson, the favorite brand of retirees and insurrectionists, has a German CEO and makes motorcycles in India. Why is this relevant? Because the world of motorcycling isn't shifting. It's already shifted, and India is at the sharp edge of the future. India is more than just a place foreign brands use for satellite plants. And it's more than a country that just buys brands screwed into the ground by mismanagement. Land Rover, I'm looking at you. India has a long history of indigenous production, of its own brands, its own heritage, its own culture. Martin Boswick, who's the global sales manager for SMK Helmets, is a Dutch national who's worked in India for years. He's both an insider and an outsider. He's seen the changes firsthand.
So when we're looking at the presence of India into a motorcycle market or in general about development, India is going through a very strong development phase currently, which is amazing to see. And also when you're looking at this factory, it's very clean, it's very organized, it's very systematic. And this is very important in order to ensure the quality and type of product that we can deliver, and also the quantity that is needed to deliver to the demand of our customers. And I think currently we're having such a development here in the company and in India as well, that the powerhouse of India is building up.
In motorcycling, there's a tendency to lump India in with China. They both have a lot of people and they make a lot of things. But as Michael Eulerach from the consultancy Motorcycle Global says, India is a different animal. China doesn't really have a motorcycling culture. In China, most two-wheelers are for cheap transit and they're mostly scooters. In India, motorcycles rule. It's true they're often small displacement, but Indians have as much of a shift-it-yourself culture as we do. To understand anything, you've got to get off the sofa. So we bundled our crew together, stuffed them into economy affair seats, and headed to India to check out firsthand a homegrown Indian success story. A helmet company started by this man, Madhu Khurana, because who doesn't love a good origin story? This segment is brought to you by Yamaha. Welcome back to El Camino. It's 1969, the year of Woodstock and the summer's biggest traffic jam. The Summer of Love was just 2 years ago, but you'd never have known it. The streets were filled with protests against the Vietnam War. A world away from this turmoil, young Madhu had just graduated as an aeronautical engineer. He had his sights set on continuing studies in the US, but NASA was cutting budgets and jobs. Madhu went to his father for advice. His dad loaned him 4,000 rupees, about $65. A businessman was born. Working out of a single garage, Madhu began making plastic parts for a local motorcycle manufacturer. After a few years, the business grew. He was up to 2 employees. And then serendipity intervened. Young Madhu was a keen motorcyclist, and in 1971 he was invited by a manufacturer to ride for the company at a rally. At the prescribed 9 a.m. start time, he and his competitors were set to go, but the helmets had yet to arrive. Now remember, at this point, helmets in India are an oddity. The event organizer was adamant. No helmets, no rally. At 2 p.m., the helmets finally arrived from the only helmet manufacturer in India. The only helmet manufacturer in India. You could forgive Madhu for being distracted while he was riding. He worked up a pitch. Would the manufacturer whose bike he was riding be interested in branded helmets? They would. Madhu bumped his staff to 15, and production soared to 150 helmets a month. Studs Accessories, as the company is called, was born. If you look at the trajectory of any company that makes it big, there's often something unpredictable and unexpected that happens. Something that propels the company into the stratosphere. It happened with Crocs, the footwear brand that should have had a short, unhappy life, but that thrived because they were discovered by a sedentary culture that realized time spent tying shoelaces could be better spent eating. Madhu's big break came in 1980 when the Indian government mandated helmets. Suddenly his product went from luxury to necessity. And then toss in the growth of India's middle class in the final decades of the last century, and the company started in a single garage, began to stretch its legs. Helmet production surged to 30,000 annually, and then, all right, no more keeping you in suspense. Today, production is 30,000 helmets a day. That's 12 million or so helmets a year. And the staff that started at 1 and grew to 15 is now at 3,000. All from a company you've never heard of. And as a footnote, if the government ever mandates Crocs, I swear I am hitting the streets. What astonishes about India is the scale of manufacturing for a population of 1.5 billion. In the US, 500,000 motorized two-wheelers are sold annually, which seems like a lot until you remember Indians buy 16.5 million motorcycles every year. Just think of the steel and aluminum and tires and oil filters that it takes to feed an industry that ravenous. Now compare this to the 80,000 or so bikes sold annually in Canada. To any one of India's most popular brands like Hero or Bajaj, Canadian sales are an accounting department rounding error. Indian manufacturing loses more motorcycles behind the cafeteria microwave than Canadians buy in a year. Food for thought. Makes me crave butter chicken just thinking about it. This segment is brought to you by Best Western Hotels and Resorts. Welcome back to El Camino. When you were the company's first employee, letting go is hard to do. It took Madhu a decade to come to terms with his business transferring to his daughter Shilpa and his son Siddharthu.
Yes, that is very interesting because, I started the business and passing on the hierarchy is a very difficult subject, But I am very fortunate that both my children, they are very hardworking, and they are very serious about it, and they have a passion to grow the business further. So today I am very satisfied that I am almost retired, but very happily retired that this situation is, many people do not get this opportunity, this kind of a retirement.
It's tough to let go, but it's not easy to take over either. Madhu's daughter, Shilpa.
Papa never brought work home. Like people say I'm from a business family or, I learned about helmets when I was young. He wouldn't bring work home. Like when he was home, he was just with us. So when we moved to Canada, it was change, and it was an opportunity for me to sort of do what I was good at and what I enjoyed. And for me, I enjoy people. I absolutely love working with people. And that's when my brother said, you know, I wish I had more family in the business, because there are days when I'm like, I just need to talk to somebody. I just need some support. And I was like, oh, I'll join. And he's like, you'll join? I said, yeah, I'll join. And let's start in the US. And he's like, no, it's a big market. I don't think we wanted to go there. I don't think we're ready. I said, no, I'm going there. And you're now going to support me, and that's what we'll do. And 3 months later, I called him. He's like, are you serious? I said, yeah, I'm serious. We're going to do it. And we did it. And that's where I am now. And I have not regretted one moment of it. I've loved it, everything about it.
You may have noticed Shilpa's Indian accent has softened. That's because she and her husband moved to Canada over 20 years ago. She initially trained as a dentist, but scraping plaque off the teeth of non-flossers didn't hold her interest. Can't imagine why. Shilpa's responsible for North American sales of SMK helmets, the brand created for the world's more affluent markets. And while we're talking family, and because I don't want Madhu to get an earful from his wife once this episode makes it to India, Shilpa gives credit where credit is due.
My mom doesn't get celebrated enough in this journey. A lot of people in India perceive the woman of the house to be the homemaker, you know, the strength of the family, and my mom is all of that. But she actually runs one of the divisions in the factory. The inner lining, it's all her brainchild. So that's something that my mom does. She's very hands-on. And she was also one of the reasons why my dad is so successful. So a lot of people don't talk about it because me, my brother, my dad are the face because we are so active in this, but my mom's the backbone of all of this. So I just wanted to mention that. I'm very proud of her.
Before we move on, I have to mention Satish. Satish is to the day-to-day running of the factory what Satan is to hell, the man in charge. But Satish is not hellish at all. He's a sweet, exceptionally smart man. We hit it off immediately. We talked bikes and politics, music, art. He also reminds me of me, and that he's a total pain in the ass. He wanted to schedule the order of our filming, but that's my job. We disagreed, but we did it agreeably. He listened carefully to my ideas and then ignored them and tried to plan the shoot his way. But I held firm. We never raised our voices, and in the end, he was sorry to see me go. And I miss him too. If he had his way, he'd have given me a windowless office in the basement, and I'd report to him every day. I could still be in India. Steady work, spicy food, employee discount. I mentioned Satish not only because I like him, but as a way of apologizing to him for not showing every single step in the manufacture of a helmet. It would have taken every El Camino episode this season to do so, which would have pleased Satish to no end. Say the words Indian factory to someone from the West, and there'll be preconceptions. I know I had a few. But the studs factory has got Satish written all over it. And who knew making helmets is such a laborious process? And pretty much everything is done in-house. It starts up here with these guys. Shell sizes vary by marketplace because not every country in the world has people like me with extra large heads. Lucky for them. Once a shell shape and size is determined, then it's off to what I think of as the most demanding part of making a helmet, which is the making of the molds. And the molds must be as close to perfect as possible. If not, every imperfection is carried on to the helmets. It says far too much about me to admit this, but I could watch this man all day. He's micro-polishing a visor mold. We caught him near the end of a process where he's using a medium no grittier than a baby's fleshy thigh. Nick it, or drop it, or look at it sideways, and he'll have to start all over again. It's best we move on. These bags are full of ABS plastic pellets that are dumped into hoppers. Once the molds pass muster, they're mounted in these machines where pressure and heat are applied to form the helmet shell. When the shells are removed and the flashing trimmed off, it's on to the next step. While this is taking place, visors are made, inspected, and coated. From here, we'll hop over to the building across the road. This is where Satish and I knocked heads, politely. He wanted us to film in a sequence he had in his mind, which would have had us bouncing back and forth across the road. and I didn't want to hop back and forth with a film crew in tow. To ease the tension, I posed a rhetorical question. Why did the film crew cross the road? Satish gave me an odd look. To get to the printing department, he said matter-of-factly. And then I tried to explain the joke about chickens crossing roads. I got the same look again. I guess chickens don't cross the road in India, but a lot of cows do, monkeys too, and people. Ah, people. This segment is brought to you by GP Bikes. Welcome back to El Camino. Before we head back to the production line, let's cross the road. Satish, lead the way. Surprisingly, this is the only place in the entire factory with an unpleasant smell. It's like sniffing a lifetime's worth of magic markers. Once the graphics are printed, we head back across the road to the main facility. Here the graphics are installed on the shells. Now this is delicate work. If you've ever tried to float a decal onto a surface without bubbles, you know the agony. They make it look easy. It's anything but. Then it's into the paint booth. The water wall collects airborne particles. And here I thought it was just to calm the workers. Some helmets are painted, some are clear-coated, some are painted and clear-coated. Look at all those workers. A speck of dust doesn't have a chance. And then the helmet interiors are sewed and then installed in the shells, along with checking, testing, riveting chin straps, buffing, cleaning, more checking, and finally, boxing up to go to a customer. Every product made for human consumption has to adhere to standards of construction. A water bottle can't poison you, a tire can't delaminate and let you crash, and a motorcycle helmet needs to protect your brain. But even that's not simple. Martin Boswick explains what it takes to sell helmets in markets around the world.
It can be quite interesting, all the markets information, as a lot of markets, they would have their own sort of certification type. You have European Union is ECE. At this moment they had just changed it from ECE 2205 to 2206, which had a huge impact on a lot of helmet manufacturers. But if you look at Brazil, it's an NBR certification, so ECE is not accepted. Australia has AS/NZS but will allow ECE. Thailand has TISI. When you look at China, it is CCC. And in all these different certifications, there are different mandatory items according to the standard of that specific country. They feel that that is safe enough for the rider to wear that helmet.
When you buy a helmet, you're expressing confidence in a brand with your wallet. When you're in a dealership standing on that plush carpet, which is not a coincidence, clever marketers think of everything, and you're facing a wall of helmets, how do you know how well any of them are built? It's a leap of faith. All you can do is hope the engineering that went into the helmet is sound and that it meets the standards of whatever country you live in. Here's the best room of all in the factory, the test room. We buy helmets based on some combination of color, style, fit, price, and graphics, all of which are secondary to safety. Motorcycle crashes are unpredictable. I worked with a guy who got his pant leg snagged on a foot peg and lost his balance while stationary in a parking lot. He was wearing a new helmet from a major brand, but it was just his luck that his head hit a concrete planter on the way to the ground. His concussion was so severe that years later, the after effects still haunt him. That's one kind of crash. I've also shot off a racing motorcycle at well over 100 miles an hour and ragdolled through the weeds. Other than a broken clavicle, I was fine. My helmet did its job. As Martin explained, global standards vary, but the basics are mostly the same. First of all, the helmet has to stay in your head. This machine ensures the chin strap is strong enough and that your head stays inside where it belongs. That's why the test department has so many different sized dummies. No offense. The next test determines the shell's resistance to crushing or shattering. Within safety circles, there's been a lot of debate asking if shells have historically been made too hard, therefore transmitting too much of the blow to the brain. That was the knock against the old Snell standard. The go-to for North American has shifted to the ECE standard, which is a change in philosophy that believes a softer shell absorbs more of the impact than it transmits. This test is to determine the shell's robustness. And since it's fun to drop things, we kept shooting long after we got the footage required. Moving on. This gizmo shoots a tiny metal ball at the visor to determine its worthiness. Who of us hasn't had something of significance bounce off a visor? I've had a beer can, a duck, and a Canada Goose hit me in the head. I'm still fine. And if you've ever ridden on a highway at night where every headlight turns psychedelic from unwanted reflections, you'll appreciate a visor that's passed this test, where a laser's refraction is measured for deviance. There will be a time, sooner than later, when the way we judge products will be independent from where the product is made. Every iPhone is made in China. And there are so many legacy brands that would rather keep this news hush-hush. But Michael Ullaric put it to me this way. Does anyone care where a Genesis car is made? Does it hide the fact that it's a Hyundai product from South Korea? No. Does my neighbor care that her Land Rover is made by an Indian-owned company? No. After all, its reputation for appalling quality was forged when the company was owned by the English. The country that won the Great War, with no shortage of help from its allies, couldn't keep oil in a Land Rover's engine or stop its electrical system from short-circuiting into a ball of flame. It's time for all of us to look past the old cliches. What should matter is this. Does a company treat its workers well? Does it provide for their retirement? Does it stand behind their products? In the world in which we live, there's no place to hide. Do your research, ask around, shop at a reputable dealer, buy from people you know and like. It's not that complicated. Problems happen when we take shortcuts. You know better, I know you do. Thank you for watching El Camino. Clothing was provided by Importations Tebow. El Camino has been brought to you by Best Western Hotels and Resorts. Wherever life takes you, Best Western is there. BS Battery, the power you need. And by Spring Toronto Motorcycle Super Show.